It's Thanksgiving week, but that means you still need your running back tiers and rankings for week 13. Luckily, we are here and we have got you covered. We're going to kick it off at the top with the S tier. Christian McCaffrey all on his own. We're not including any players playing in the Thanksgiving slate. The volume he has seen has been absolutely insane. For that reason alone, it feels like you can't do anything but start him, and it's just no questions asked at this point.
Yeah, it is. He's on pace for 422 touches in the regular season. Like last year, Saquon Barkley had insane volume and capped out at 378 in the regular season. Like, it will be a worry for next year about whether he can kind of keep this level of play going. But for now, absolutely, we just lean into it.
In the A tier, we do have Jonathan Taylor, Devon Achane, and Bijan Robinson. Achane's been balling week in, week out, but we have him down here in the A tier. Is this just a matchup thing, Tom, or is there something else you're a little bit more nervous about?
Yeah, the Saints are a clear pass funnel. They top six EPA allowed to the run, like they're very good defending that, but they rank 24th against the pass. Now, the counter to this would be to say, okay, well, Achane will do enough in the receiving game and he's explosive enough that maybe we shouldn't be worried about him too much. But I just kind of think, yeah, it's a little bit tricky looking at this game and kind of wondering how the Dolphins are going to show up, what they're going to look like in this one. I think that Achane can win in enough ways where I always want to be interested in him, but it just drags him down a little bit. Like you look at the Saints, even though they're a pass funnel, haven't given up huge receiving days to running backs. They've not allowed a single running back over 50 yards this year. So just a little bit of trepidation, enough to knock him down from the top tier to the second tier, but it's minimal differences.
And then we got Bijan Robinson sat here. Limited receiving usage last week, still ran a lot of routes, 68% of routes, but only 10% target share with Kirk Cousins under center. How confident are you feeling in Bijan this week?
I don't feel particularly great about anything in this Falcons offense at the minute, but they are favorites going on the road to the Jets. So perhaps we should feel a little bit better about the situation. You know, if they are the favorites and if they end up being ahead in the game, maybe they can control things. The Jets ranked 12th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the position. Against the run, they ranked 20th in EPA allowed. But to your point, yeah, just a 10% target share last week, which tied his second lowest mark of the season. His 68% route share, according to JJ Zacharyson, was slightly below his 74% season-long average. So there are little things to worry about, but Bijan Robinson, he's a superstar, and all these guys that we've got on the screen currently, they're guys that if you've got them on your roster, you're probably feeling pretty good about how your team's played this year.
Absolutely. Before we move into the B tier, though, if you are finding this for the first time, welcome in. Now hit the subscribe button. You will not regret it. In the B tier, we do have Saquon Barkley, Kyren Williams, James Cook, Travis Etienne, Trevion Henderson, and Ashton Jeanty. Kyren Williams has been a little bit of a headache this year. Earlier in the season, we thought that Blake Corum was starting to eat into the workload and maybe take over, but the last 2 weeks, he's put it off, but he's still not putting up elite fancy production with a 4.9 PPR point last week. Do you think he could be a get-right matchup for them this week?
Well, the reason why he doesn't particularly put up great fantasy numbers is because he doesn't see a lot of receiving work. Like he's quite often hovers just below 10%. And then he quite often doesn't get the goal line work because they have Davante Adams, who is the best goal line back in the league. Like, why bother running the ball when you can just pass it there instead? So yeah, it's a little tricky for Kyren Williams to hit his ceiling outcomes. The Panthers have been middle of the table against running backs. I think it's a fine one based on volume, but it's definitely not an exceptional matchup.
One player who there was a lot of hoopla and hype around Bhayshul Tuten taking over the backfield share from Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne still saw his usual 2/3 of the work, both on the ground and through the air. We've got him up here in the dizzy heights of the B tier. Are you still comfortable that Travis Etienne is a plug-and-play RB2 for fantasy?
Yep, going up against the Titans, who will have fourth most fantasy points to opponents, who rank 28th in rushing EPA allowed. Like, teams are very much able to run up the score through the ground game and very much confident in Travis Etienne this week.
And Ashton Jeanty has caused plenty of people headaches all year after they probably spent premium draft capital in him earlier in the season. New offensive coordinator. It sounds like he's healthy, practiced in full after a potential ankle injury. Nerves, confidence, just want to see what it is. Where are you on Ashton Jeanty?
Well, it's a good matchup going up against the Chargers. They're a clear run funnel. They rank 5th against the pass, but they rank 22nd against the run. They've allowed no more than the 6th fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends. But the running back position, they've allowed the 11th most to. Ashton Jeanty has seen target shares of 20%, 21%, and 19% over his last 3 games. And I saw Ryan Heath pointing this out on Twitter. The only other running backs in the league who can currently say that over that 3-game stretch, Christian McCaffrey and Devin Achane. It's just the offensive line. The offensive line is a nightmare. The efficiency of the offense in general is a nightmare. But Ashton Jeanty's doing everything he can.
We're going to move into the C tier, and we do have Breece Hall, Rico Dowdle, Jaylen Warren, RJ Harvey, and Bucky Irving. Jaylen Warren has been remarkably consistent, over 8 fantasy points in every single game this year, but hasn't really had that huge ceiling game. Now splitting work with Kenny Gainwell, losing out on a lot of the passing work, only ran 31% of routes last week. Does that cap the ceiling? Are you still comfortable with Jaylen Warren, or where are you at with him this week?
Yeah, like we saw Kenneth Gainwell had that 36% carry share last week, 19% target share, and he's out-targeted Warren for a few games in a row. So that is concerning. But it's also concerning that they're splitting carries inside the 10. But I do just lean towards Jaylen Warren because of the bigger body of work at the minute. The way to get at the Steelers, the way to get at the Bills is by running the ball on them. They're a terrible run defense. They rank 31st there. They've given up the 3rd most fantasy points for running back position. They've been particularly vulnerable to explosive runs. They've allowed the 4th highest explosive run rate. So there are enough reasons why I think that this one can go well, and I'm just slightly trusting Jaylen Warren ahead of Kenny Gainwell, but it's not by a lot, and it could easily flip in the next week.
And then we're going to dive. Oh, before we dive into the details, Bucky Irving is looking like he's back healthy this week. There are some talk with the offensive coordinator that he could be eased back in rather than getting a full workload. Are you viewing him more as a flex option this week than potentially an RB2? I think given the conversations that have come out in the last 24 hours, I may be dropping him down my ranks a little bit. Are you with me?
Yeah, I'm not really big on playing guys coming back from injury in their first week. It quite often doesn't work out particularly well for you. And Bucky Irving has been out for a sustained period of time since the very early parts of the season now, going up against Cardinals defense, who've been reasonable. You know, they rank 15th in rushing EPA allowed. They rank 17th in fantasy points allowed to the position. It's not a smash spot. And we've seen Sean Tucker look really good. We've seen Rachaad White have his moments. So the idea that Bucky Irving just comes in there and immediately takes over everything, I'm not sure I trust that. And that's why he's definitely, when healthy, you know, he's a top 12 running back, but it would be very hard to project that right now.
Absolutely. And also, you know, that entire offense is a little bit banged up. Baker's obviously injured. The wide receivers are struggling. And you just wonder how much touchdown equity there's going to be to go around in that backfield. Before we move into the D tier and the flexible options, if you have got an agonizing flex decision that you can't decide what to do, jump in the comments below. Tom and I will answer all those start-sit questions. You got trade questions, we'll answer those too. In the D tier, we do have Quinshon, Judkins, Kenneth Walker, Woody Marks, Aaron Jones, Kenneth Gainwell, Trey Benson, Kamani Vidal, and Tyrone Tracy. Quinshon Judkins got home last week with 2 goal line touchdowns. Outside of that, he was incredibly inefficient. Do you think that we're touchdown or bust with Judkins again, or is there more hope that he can get back to some of the earlier season efficiency that we did see?
I think it's still going to be much of the same. I mean, don't get us wrong, the goal line work was fantastic. The Wildcat runs, it was great that the team felt the confidence to put him in for those. But this was the Raiders who absolutely stink, who can't stop anyone. And yeah, you look at what he's given us recently: 16 for 47 on the ground, 17 for 59 on the ground, 22 for 75 on the ground, 9 for 19. And during the broadcast last week, the broadcast crew made the point that the Browns want to get Dylan Sampson more involved. Like, and obviously he did that straight away with that screen, which he took to the house. But if Sampson starts eating into the work of Judkins, then it's going to be very difficult for him to pay off because he's not being efficient enough to do so. And this matchup, yes, the Browns have played better at home, but going up against the Niners, it does feel like a very tricky one. Even though the Niners run their defense isn't particularly special at the minute, it just feels like the kind of matchup that I'd like to avoid if possible.
Any running back that's not receiving usage makes me nervous. And any running back that is inefficient on that rushing usage makes me extra nervous. So, yeah, I'm not convinced in Judkins this week. And as you said, it's not exactly the greatest matchup. Kenneth Walker has caused many a fantasy owner headaches this season. 50-50 backfield split with Zach Charbonnet. But the last couple of weeks, he started to pull away. It started to look almost like a 2/3, 1/3 in Kenneth Walker's favour. Because of that, do we have him a little bit too low here, all the way in our D tier?
Maybe, but like he was playing against the Titans, who we've already talked about. You can run all over the Titans. They have fourth most fantasy points, rank bottom 2 in rushing EPA allowed. So maybe that factored into it quite a bit. Now, this week, going up against the Vikings defense quite often is struggling because their offense is putting them back on the field so frequently. And the Vikings, they rank 19th against the run. They haven't given up huge amounts of fantasy points. They've given up the 8th fewest. So I think that this is a fine matchup for Kenneth Walker, but I don't think it's one where you look at it and you go, this is a great matchup. It's more the Seahawks are favored by 10. So if that plays out, then surely Kenneth Walker does end up getting enough touches to get home.
Yeah, I think you're looking for a touchdown, aren't you? He ran pretty pure on targets last week. Only 16 reach run, 4 targets. Feels like that's unlikely to be that efficient again. So maybe we see a little bit of a reduction in the passing work and hope that he can find the end zone to keep that day alive. In this tier, we also have Trey Benson. Welcoming him back, expecting him to make his much weighted return. Does his return render this backfield pretty unusable until we've seen how it's going to shake out between he, Zonovan Knight, and Michael Carter?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like this backfield's been one which I've been avoiding for the last few weeks because it's so volatile week to week. You never know who's going to see which role, who's going to see how much of the work. It seems to be very dependent on week to week. Is Trey Benson going to be healthy from the get-go? I don't know. The Bucks are a much better run defense than they are a pass defense. They rank 8th best against the run, whereas the pass, they rank 18th. They've allowed the middle of the pack when it comes to fantasy points allowed at 15th. I don't think that this is the kind of matchup where I want to start Trey Benson.
And then also in this tier, we have Kamani Vidal ranked. At the moment, we're not ranking Omarion Hampton. He is back practicing, but at the moment, we're not expecting him to play. Feels like Vidal is a solid flex option, but probably not much more. How do you feel about that? And would that change significantly if Hampton were to go?
Yeah, I mean, if Hampton were to go, I think that I would be moving him higher than where we've got Vidal. I think you could probably put him in at the end of the C tier. The Raiders, they've allowed the 8th most fantasy points. Even Quinshon Judkins got a home against them, so there's no reason to be scared of playing running backs against them. I just find Vidal, like, there's something about the box scores and stuff, like it's not overly consistent. I don't feel like the talent is doing enough to command huge amounts of touches consistently. So, yeah, that's why he's down here.
In the E tier, we do have Devin Neal, DeAndre Swift, Zach Charbonnet, Chris Rodriguez, Tyler Algier, Carl Monongai, Tony Pollard, Bhayshul Tuten, Rhamondre Stevenson, Tajay Spears, and Sean Tucker. Alvin Kamara looks like he's going to miss a few weeks with injury. Devin Neal has ascended to the running back 1 spot. What are your thoughts and hopes for the rookie?
Yeah, I was thinking back to the offseason when we had Heath Cummings on the channel and he was really talking him up. He really liked him as a prospect, and it would be nice to see him have a good run out. Like, the volume that we saw from him last week wasn't good. He was averaging 2.6 yards per carry, but he caught all 5 of his passes for 43 yards. If you can give us that and you can give us the receiving side of it, then yeah, there's something to be interested in. Going up against the Dolphins defense, they've gotten much better against the run recently, so maybe it's the receiving side that they need to lean into.
I really like Devin Neal, the prospect, and I'm fascinated to see how they use him. I think he's a different type of running to Alvin Kamara, and whether that means we're going to see a slight tweak in scheme is certainly something that I'm going to be watching closely this week. We've also got Chris Rodriguez in this tier. The Washington Commanders backfield has been one that I've been avoiding all season because it's been a bit of a mess. Coming out the bye, do we expect maybe Chris Rodriguez to emerge as a bit more of a bell cow, or do we think it's still going to be a mess and therefore difficult to start any of them?
Yeah, well, in Madrid, Rodriguez had 15 for 79 on the ground, whilst we saw JCM have 9 attempts for 28 yards. Rodriguez is the better running back right now. He's better scheme fit. And I just think that that trend is probably going to continue. Going up against the Broncos this week, that doesn't feel like a situation where I want to indulge in any of these running backs. The Broncos have allowed the 9th fewest fantasy points. They rank top 10 in rushing EPA allowed to the position. So yeah, Rodriguez is the right guy, and we want him because of his fantasy playoff schedule where he plays the Giants, Eagles, and Cowboys, all teams that you can run on, but we don't want him for this week against the Broncos, maybe.
Much was made of the return of Rhamondre Stevenson and what that would mean for Trevion Henderson, but not much was made about whether Rhamondre Stevenson could still be a flexible option. We've got him all the way down in our E tier. Is he just a handcuff this week and probably for the rest of the season now?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, he only played 22 snaps last week, whilst Henderson played 46. If you're not playing that many snaps, it's going to be tricky. This is a good matchup. Maybe he should be higher, though. The Giants, they've allowed the second most fantasy points to the position. They rank dead last in EPA allowed. They allow the highest yards per carry to opposing running backs. So maybe this one is just holding on too much to Trevion and how good he's been, because the Giants here allow 5.9 yards per carry, which is just ridiculous.
Wow. In the F tier, we do have Devin Singletary, Rashad White, Jordan Mason, Blake Corum, and Nick Chubb. Not sure any of those are worth touching on. And that is it. You have made it this far into the video. Keep it simple. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the hype, and of course, check out these other videos on your way out.